We will now call to order can't even talk. Let's try this again. We will now call to order the Special Committee on Reducing Red Tape on Monday, September 30th at 3:06 PM. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Spencer,
Present.
Alderman Ryan,
Here.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Here. Alderwoman Keys. Vice Chair Oldenburg,
Present.
Alderwoman Sunier. Present. Chair Velasquez,
Present.
Alderwoman Keys. We have 6 present, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I will now entertain a motion for the approval of minutes for the meeting on, the minutes of the meeting from June 17th, 2024, and Thursday, August 15th, 2024.
I'm sorry, you had the wrong one. This should be from last week. 1 second.
I did the last one. Hold on, I have it. Actually, scratch that. I will now entertain a motion for approval of the minutes from Monday, September 23rd.
Second.
Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman Ryan,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys. Vice Chair Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderwoman Sonier. Chair Velasquez,
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys. We have 6 aye votes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we have been doing listening sessions, and today we did have a listening session, but there appears there's no one here for us to listen to today. So we're just going to go right ahead and move on to item number 1 on our board bills for review, which is board bill number 103.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Madam Clerk, can you read the summary of Board Bill 103?
Board Bill 103, introduced by Alderwoman Shameen Clark Hubbard, an ordinance repealing Chapter 8.22 of the Revised Code of the City of St. Louis to eliminate certain regulations for barbershops.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So this bill will eliminate some things, some regulations that have been in place as it relates to hours of operation for barbershops in the city of St. Louis that originated in 1948. So a lot has changed, and even in the language of the bill, not just hours, but some of the regulations around holidays that barbershops can be open those days. The names of those days has changed. The way they fall during the week have changed. And so with this, it's kind of like identifying something that, hey, it may not be used now, but it could potentially be used if someone wanted to target a specific business by it still being a law on the books here in the city of St. Louis. And since it was brought to our attention and people know that this is kind of where my passion meets policy meets my profession as being a Missouri licensed cosmetologist for 30 years here, then I was able to see the need in this. I own 2 salons myself, and one of the things in here, you can't be open on Sundays. That's not a state law. Missouri State Cosmetology does not regulate what days we can be open and what hours we can be open, not just cosmetology, but barbers. And so having something in place that says you can't work those days and then the hours that you have to specifically be closed could just be a barrier that you never know somebody could pull out and use as a tool, again, against a business here in the city of St. Louis. So I did talk to barbers who absolutely did not know this was in place, had never heard of it. And these are barbers that have been barbering for generations here in the city of St. Louis. And I also talked to salon owners, barber salon owners, and other people. One person told me that they were told they had to be closed 2 days a week, but that was the only thing he said anybody had ever told him. And I, again, told him that that's not true. That's not a law, but there is a law in place that says you can't be open on Sundays, you can't be open on holidays, and you can't be open past 6:30. in the evening. So it even regulates what time you can take your last client. So again, this is just repealing this so that we don't have this barrier that anybody could pull out when they wanted to against barbershops in the city of St. Louis. If anybody has any questions, I would love to answer them, but ultimately I would just love to have you all's favorable consideration and do pass recommendation on Board Bill 103.
Great, thank you. Do you want to see if there's anybody who wants to testify first for this, or do you want to go to committee?
Okay.
Or do you want to do
Do
committee?
you know then, did the person say they wanted to speak on behalf of the bill, or they just? Okay, yeah, I did send out the link, because again, I was talking to colleagues in this profession all over the weekend and all last week. So, but I know, listen, typically Mondays are the days off for cosmetologists and barbers, so I didn't put any pressure on them, but I said, if you would like to come and see what this process looks like and participate in a hearing process here in the city of St. Louis to speak about why, you know, that would be a barrier, a hindrance to you operating your business, and I definitely invited them. So even if they don't come up, I'm here for them, on behalf of them, with their 100% support, and knowing that, hey, we didn't even know this was in place, and two, please, let's repeal this.
Well, while we're waiting on that testimony, let's just go through members of the committee to see if they have any questions. Alderman Oldenburg.
No questions.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you to the sponsor for working on this. I had several folks who work in this industry and have mentioned this kind of constraint, and I think it's a good move. I guess my question would just be, I was hoping for some clarification from the sponsor. Alderwoman, did you mention, I know you have worked previously in this field, and I was just asking for some clarification on what
You froze.
my connection appears to be unstable, so I apologize if I got cut off there.
Yeah, you stopped after clarification, so
Okay.
Yeah.
My apologies.
No, you're fine.
Internet connection in my neighborhood has been extraordinarily troubling. That's another topic here, but no, my question was on clarifying your role. I know you have worked previously in the field of cosmetology, and you mentioned that in your opening remarks. Can you clarify whether or not you still work in the field of cosmetology?
I can clarify this by saying, I wish I could leave here today and go do somebody's hair and get back behind the chair, but my schedule as an alder lady does not permit that. I absolutely love being able to encourage women and some men and children the way I have for 30 plus years here in the field of cosmetology. But COVID, I had already had to find a balance when I first took office in 2019, and COVID shut everything down. And then I was never able to even find any kind of balance now, especially with these new bigger wards, bigger geography, that I just can't find the balance. But if there's somebody like, I'm a mother, and if there's somebody like my daughters or somebody that calls and said, would you do my hair? Because I'm known for having growing hands, very skilled at taking care of hair. I did own 2 salons prior to this, and here's something in the bill, you can't be open on Sundays. I was known, I built a whole clientele working on Sundays after church. I would go straight to my salon because there were women that couldn't get their hair done on any other day but Sunday. And so again, but here, this bill is not, for whatever reason, carved out barbers only and not salons. That's another thing that's a problem with this bill. But that was a long way of me saying, Alderwoman Spencer, I wish I could still be a cosmetologist, but the balance isn't there. And I love my job as an alder lady and the work that I do here. So maybe one day in the future, it's a skill, it's a gift, so it can't be taken away. But I just don't have the time now.
Thank you, Alderman. I wasn't able to hear all of that. I did cut in and out, but it's my understanding by the summary of what I could get from this internet connection that that you're no longer in that field. I appreciate your clarification on that. I think it's important to mention that if we're going to be voting on a bill that you're sponsoring, that you mentioned it on the front end. So I appreciate the opportunity to ask that question. And I think that, like I said, on the front end, that this is a good move, to be able to require those businesses have hours that dictate they can't be open on weekends. It's really makes it difficult to eke out a living in that field. And it's a very, very valuable field to be in, and one that I certainly do support. So that's all the questions I have, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Narayan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a pretty common sense piece of legislation that I commend the sponsor on bringing forward. I've talked many times about our need to clean up the books, so to speak, to get some of the older ordinances off the books, things that aren't used anymore. This seems like a prime example of that. So I'd like to commend the sponsor and request that I be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman.
Thank you, Alderman Narayan. I'm going to skip you, Alder Lady. Alderwoman Sanye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank Alderwoman Clark Hubbard for her work on this bill. When I was reading through it, I learned so many things that I didn't know. So maybe not questions, just transparency for the public. Some of the things that are in this very outdated, antiquated bill is like there's a rule in here that says that they have to close at 6:30 on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. There are certain holidays that they're mandatory to close. It's certain language around like their reaction with customers. Just a lot of things. I'm not even sure what the intention of it, but it seems like, having to abide by some of these very rules could be the reason that a barbershop would close and could not operate. When I take my brothers to go get their haircuts or dreads relocked or whatever we're doing, I mean, we often go after my mom gets off work, after they get home from school activities. So I could see how a lot of these things would be huge barriers. So I'm glad to see this legislation, and I would like to be added as co-sponsor.
Thank you.
So noted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. I have no questions. Just want to echo my colleagues' comments on thank you for bringing in this piece of legislation. I was a co-sponsor. I don't see my name on there. So, Madam Clerk, if you could just note it out on there to be a co-sponsor. And I think just as Alderman Narayan said, making sure that our ordinances reflect the world we live in today. And especially, I think these are probably written in a time where it most likely targeted some communities more than others. So I think it's important that we make sure that our laws reflect that. So I have no questions. Just thank you for sponsoring this bill and carrying it through. And as somebody who gets their hair done, I know this is a barbershop bill and not a bill, but somebody gets their hair done at different times. It is helpful to have that flexibility. So I'm sure customers and other people just want to get it done when they have time. So
Yeah. I want to thank you too, because I know you were one of the reasons why this was even brought to our attention. Some of these things going through these kind of pieces, like Alderman Ryan said, and finding these things that are outdated. For instance, also why it was just for barbershops, again, targeted then and could be used as a tool for targeting now. These regulations are not in the Missouri State, which is something I referenced, which is why I'm very proud, again, for being Missouri State registered Missouri State cosmetologist for this long. So I know that these aren't even regulations that are within the Missouri State. So I don't know who sat down and thought this up and why they would think it up. And then again, to your point, I was looking at Armistice, I might be pronouncing it wrong, I had never even heard of it, Armistice Day, which eventually turned into Veterans Day, and Decoration Day, which eventually turned into Memorial Day. So many things out of this legislation, again, are just outdated, and I appreciate the support, and I'm sure that our barbers, even again, something that hasn't been used, knowing that they can't be used, is the support that they would need as well. So thank you for everyone who signed up to be a co-sponsor.
thank you, Alder Lady. Madam Clerk, is there anybody who wants to testify online? And just a quick question, are you here to testify about this bill or about pop-up vendors? Okay, so we'll hear that next. Yes, so we'll do that. We're going to hear and vote on this bill, and then great too. No, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
We have no one to speak on Alderman's bill. No.
We have no one.
No.
Okay.
Is there any written testimony?
We have none.
We have none?
Well, it's okay. Like I said, I had discussions about this all last week and all during the weekend. I was at an amazing celebration that had a concentration for whatever reason. It just ended up happening that way. The stars aligned of barbers in the city of St. Louis. So I was able to talk to them. And again, they know that this is happening. This is in support of them. And so, again, I would love to be able to count on you all's now, even on top of the co-sponsorship, your favorable consideration and do pass recommendation for Board Bill 103.
Thank you. Before we do that, Alderwoman Sonier has a question, and there was some written comments that I think earlier that I forwarded to the clerk, just so you have them.
I just had a comment for Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. I'm just requesting to make it onto that special exclusive list of people
Okay.
you your wands back out for. So I just wanted to
Wow.
put that on
Right.
the
Oh
on the
my
record.
gosh,
And
you
I'll make it
guys.
on.
I love when
I
blessing.
second that.
It's a blessing. I don't take it for granted. I don't. But if I can ever get back to it and listen, there's probably some women listening that if they knew I was even thinking about it, they would be probably sitting waiting on me in the parking lot. And I'm proud of that. But until I get there, I have some good recommendations and references too. Because when you've been doing hair this long, reputably, then you make the relationships to be able to carry on. So thank you.
Well, then I move that we pass this bill with the due pass recommendation.
Second.
Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Spencer,
Aye.
Alderman Ryan,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys, Vice Chair Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderwoman Sonier,
Aye.
Chair Velasquez,
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys. We have 6 aye votes.
Congratulations,
much.
Alder Lady. All right, Madam Clerk, with that, we will move on to our second agenda item, which isn't quite reflected on here, but was on the other one. Oh, yes, item number 2, pop-up businesses and vendor licenses. So as the committee knows, but for folks new-ish to this committee, we've been holding a series of listening sessions to try and understand what really people are experiencing, but particular business owners for pop-up businesses and mobile vendors, what they're experiencing, get a better sense of what is actually happening to try and address it legislatively in a way that is helpful. So with that, I will let Madam Clerk call you up, and we'll do testimony for 5 minutes. So you'll have 5 minutes to speak. If you don't speak for 5 minutes, that's okay. But we really just want to hear about your opinion.
Well, they didn't sign up to speak, they just want to listen.
Oh. Do you want to speak? Are you a pop-up vendor? Sure. I mean, typically you would ask, I don't know, testimony works that you would make a statement and it's not really a Q&A, but we'd love to, I think, hear from maybe about the things you're considering and maybe the reasons why you wouldn't consider it. If you could share some of that, if you'd be interested in sharing some of that.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Sure. So if you could raise your right hand and
I'm dyslexic.
do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. And if you could just say your, oh,
It's on.
it's on. I think maybe it just needs to,
Is it on?
yeah, maybe you just need to point it to you because,
I'm not used to speaking at a
yep,
microphone.
that's perfect. And then your first and last name, if you know your ward and why you're here.
My name is Maureen Wagoner. I work with the African People's Education and Defense Fund, which does a lot of work in Ward 11 and Ward 14, and I don't know if Pamela Boyd's ward is 13, I think.
13.
Yeah, they've all changed. And I live in Ward 3. So one of the things that we're looking at is food trucks. And so we had wondered, like, we've seen that there's a lot of complications with getting businesses started in St. Louis. I have a couple questions about that. One is, in terms of these board bills, can a civilian write up a board bill, or does it have to come through the mayor and an alderperson? Because I think a lot of the laws that we've been facing need to be changed, including, the influence that individual aldermen and neighborhood associations have over businesses. That's one thing, but also just wanting to know where food trucks can be situated, and I've read different things about it, and just kind of, it's confusing, and from what I've heard, it's really hard to be able to get a food truck, which is very expensive. Then you have to have a commissary kitchen, and then you have to get permission to be certain places. So we were coming here hoping to hear from other businesses what their questions and concerns were, and being able to help support other businesses, as well as learn what next steps can be taken. So those were my comments and questions.
Great. So what I'm going to do is typically the comment testimony isn't a Q&A style.
Right.
I'm going to ask all my colleagues to see if they have any questions. But what I will say is that we can give you additional. Alderman Aldrich, who is not part of the committee but is joining us here today, has sponsored Board Bill 14, which relates to food trucks.
Okay.
And we can look and find the date of the previous listening session that we had specifically on food trucks, and it's on YouTube, so you could go back and watch that and see what other people said. I don't want to assume, but I'm sure by now Alderman Aldrich is an expert on on all things food trucks, so he would probably be an excellent person to talk to. But that is Board Bill 14.
And it was passed,
It hasn't been passed yet.
Okay.
It's in its legislative process.
which means it's gone to some committee and it
Which
goes.
means it's gone to this committee. It's been heard once, but we didn't take a vote on it. You don't necessarily have to take a vote. Alder Lady Clark Hubbard presented a bill, and we took a vote on it today. You don't have. There's many times bills have multiple hearings.
Okay.
So again, because this isn't a format that we typically do Q&A, I just want to be respectful of the process.
Sure. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask my colleagues if they have any questions, and then what might be good is for you to stick around, and we can provide the additional information on when that last hearing was, so you can watch it. And if Alderman Aldrich has some time to share some insights on the bill that he's been working.
That'd be very helpful. Thank you.
So just going through the process here, Alderman Oldenburg, any questions?
No, thank you, Madam Chair. No questions or comments.
Thank you. Alderwoman Spencer?
Your internet again.
I think she froze again. Alderman
Sorry,
Narayan?
Gary, no questions for you.
Oh, any questions, Alderwoman Spencer?
No, thank you. I
No,
just,
no questions.
Thank
No
you.
questions for me. Thank you. Other than I would encourage the speaker to touch base with Alderman Aldridge regarding his board bill. Thank you.
Alder Lady Clark Hubbard?
That was the same thing I was going to say. No questions, but I encourage you to, and go back and watch the
The
recording
listening
as well.
session.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Alderman Sanye?
No questions. Just thank you for coming. If you do have any questions about our process, I'm happy to stay afterwards and speak to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. I don't have any other questions either, but we can follow up and get, like I said, the date of that hearing, because it was on YouTube, and it might, just watching it might give you some more, it will give you some
I'm sure
For
it will.
sure.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I see we have somebody to testify, but I believe I think this is in relation to Board Bill 103. Madam Clerk?
I'm
Madam
not
Chair, I
sure.
have testimony on both items, actually, but I'd be happy to speak about special events, too.
Yes, so with that, can you raise your right hand? And do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And if you could, I know you've done this before, but state your name, what organization you're with, and all that good contextual information that helps us.
Thanks very much. My name is Jenny, and I'm the city's work director at the Institute for Justice. The Institute for Justice is a national nonprofit that advocates on behalf of entrepreneurs, among other people. And I lead our city's work initiative, which partners with cities to help them rectify some of the regulatory barriers that small business owners face when they're trying to open and grow their businesses. I had testimony on Board Bill 103, but since that passed, no worries. I think I submitted it in writing, so hopefully y'all have that for the record. But I did want to talk a little bit about special events and pop-ups because we've done some interviews with entrepreneurs as well as city staff and have heard a lot about the context of special events and have some recommendations for how we can improve the process. We all know that special events are incredibly important for bringing visitors and revenue to St. Louis. You know, they're a really important avenue for nascent businesses to engage in pop-ups and really get their name out there in the community when they're just getting started. And it's a good way to kind of build a brand and a company. They're also very important for cultural vibrancy, for making living in St. Louis wonderful to have all these community events. And the special events office within St. Louis City Hall is a wonderful resource for entrepreneurs. And they do a great job helping to facilitate special events for organizers, help organizers deal with all of the different city departments and permits and things like that that they need to get. But unfortunately, getting the permits that they need can be a little bit challenging and kind of a black box for organizers. So one of the things that we've heard a lot is that the process can be somewhat subjective. So it's not always clear why some events are approved and others are not approved, or why some events can have a certain component and others can't. So an example that we've heard a lot about is having a mechanical bull at an event. They've been approved for some events, but not for other events. And often the organizers are left not really knowing why a certain permit or permission may be not granted for them. Departments do have pretty broad discretion in whether to approve or deny permits, which, you know, when we're worried about health and safety and quality of life in the city makes total sense. But it would be beneficial to have a little bit more clarity on what the standards are for getting permits approved and denied for special events. Another concern is that it can take a very long time to get all the permits you need for a special event approved. So there's no statutory requirement for when departments have to respond to an application. And so quite often an application just kind of sits there until the last minute, and then close to the event, the permit may be denied because the organizer filled it out improperly or didn't provide enough information. But at that point, there's not enough time before the event to provide the necessary information in order to get the permit. So oftentimes there are things that are denied that maybe could have been approved if they had been dealt with quicker. And then lastly, we've heard a lot about the application process, you know, to apply for all these different permits. Organizers often have to go to different city departments in person and pay by a physical check, which can be just really inconvenient and slow down the process. But we have heard that the process is moving to an online front door type of system. And so we're really excited to see that because we think that'll really benefit event organizers. So we just have a couple of recommendations for what the Board of Aldermen can do to help better facilitate special events in St. Louis. And the first thing would be to write into the city code, you know, a timeline for permit approval and denial. So for example, perhaps departments have 10 days to either approve a permit or provide feedback on changes that are needed in order to get approval. And then once maybe additional information or an updated application is received, they have another 5 days to respond to that additional information. And then some amount of time, maybe it's 20 or 30 days, to fully approve or deny in totality, unless there is some sort of delay that's caused by the applicant themselves. And we would propose to give this teeth that if a permit is not responded to or approved or denied within the statutory amount of time, that the permit would be automatically granted so that folks are not waiting for something that's out of their control in order to host their special event. We'd also recommend that various departments be required to provide specific actionable feedback about why a permit can't be approved as submitted. And so the idea there is to change the culture from, you know, just saying no, you know, there's something wrong with this event in this detail, so the answer is no, changing that viewpoint to be, okay, how can we help this event organizer make sure that their event can happen in accordance with law so that everybody is healthy and safe and, you know, everybody's pleased with the outcome. So we at Cities Work are very happy to help draft any legislation that the committee thinks is a good idea to help facilitate special events. We're happy to work with individual departments and talk to department heads and city staff to see what they need in order to improve the process and really just act as kind of a facilitator to get this moving, because we know that special events are so important for small businesses, and removing red tape is really going to help St. Louis grow in its vibrancy and economy by having more of these special events. So with that, be happy to answer any questions you might have, and we look forward to continuing to work with you on this.
Thank you, Jenny. Now I'm going to go to my colleagues and see if anybody does have questions. Alderman Oldenburg.
No, thank you very much, Jenny, for testifying.
Alderwoman Spencer.
No questions, but obviously this is such an important issue. The mechanical bull thing, I've heard this before, having represented Cherokee Street and Cinco de Mayo. And, there really needs to be some consistency here. I think one of the things too, I just want to give a shout out to, the one guy in our special events office. We don't fund it the way we should. And, I just think we put a lot on one person. And in addition to kind of breaking some of these things down, I'd like to see us actually facilitating and being a supportive role to events, because they are so important to the city, and they drive revenue, they drive engagement, they're all around just a win-win for everybody. So thank you for testifying. It's very thoughtful to hear your perspective, and we appreciate you coming down today.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Narayan. All right. Alderwoman Clark
On the
Hubbard.
line.
I don't have any questions. Thank you, Jenny, for your testimony and for being here for both. And then I also want to echo the sentiments and give my kudos and support, unwavering support for Travis and the work that he does. Anytime I send my constituents to him, he always responds patiently and directs them in the direction that they need to go for whatever their event needs are. And so that is a very small but mighty staff, and I always commend him and thank him publicly whenever I can.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderwoman Sanye.
Just thank you for being here. Same thing. I would thank Mr. Travis. There's a few people in city government. I don't know how, just as one person offices, they do as well as they are and are as responsive as they are, but he's definitely one of them. But I would also encourage you, maybe it'd be worth an email to Mr. Travis or someone else about getting a list of, there has to be some kind of criteria or something written somewhere about special events. And I know that there's several kind of permits and things that sometimes the refusal or acceptance of it is really up to the alder of that area and whether or not they permit it. But I bet that there is a list, or could be one created for you, that could kind of maybe make a list of things that are kind of already approved versus what requires an alder person's approval or additional things like that. And I would be happy to send that email, or if you email me, send the email with you CC'd in it to see if we could get that together for you.
That would be great. Thank you. We've met with Travis when we were in town recently, and he's wonderful and really helped us understand the process. And so we would be happy to work with, Travis and any of the alders who are interested in creating checklists or any other guidance that would be helpful too. We'd be happy to help with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderwoman Sanye. No questions. I apparently didn't know about the mechanical as being an outlier, so you learn something new every day. No, I think I think this is something that obviously that I hope that the committee intends to work on, and I think you've heard from some feedback that we do want to address some of those changes. And I think the other thing I would just like to just share for public information, as well as we've been in touch with the Chief Technology Officer in and his timeline in developing that open, or I guess that front door, the online portal that they're trying to work on. So as soon as it is up and running, I will ask them to come and present to this committee and talk about what's going on. So I just want my colleagues to know that. I don't have any other questions in this particular moment, just as much as seeing how we can get some legislation together. And again, to my colleagues, if it's something that you are interested in working on, please let me know. I think it's something that we'd like to address, since we've heard just the a range of experiences for people in the city that it doesn't have to be. Um, That's it. Any other questions from the committees? All right, thank you for your
Thank you.
testimony. All right, well, with that, that concludes our listening session for pop-up businesses. Knowledge testimony, Madam Clerk.
The one written testimony from Ms. McDonald.
Perfect. Are there any announcements? I will take that pause as we have none. I would like to excuse Alderwoman Keys today. Can I get a second? Or I move to excuse her. All right, great. If nobody else, do you have something, Alderwoman Spencer?
I was just seconding the
Oh,
absence.
thank you.
Okay.
And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.